The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a soft hiss. Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped inside, her worn boots clicking against the polished floor. Around her, hundreds of alien beings turned to stare. Some floated in glass tanks filled with strange liquids. Others wore thick protective suits that covered their entire bodies. A few sat inside crystal domes that glowed with soft light. Elena carried only a simple leather bag. She wore plain clothes, dark pants, a white shirt, and an old jacket. No protective gear, no breathing mask, no special suit. The other beings in the room looked at her with confusion and disgust. "How can she breathe our air?" whispered a tall, thin creature with silver skin. Its voice came through a speaker attached to its environmental suit. "Primitive species," said another alien that looked like a giant jellyfish floating in a water tank. "They don't understand the dangers." Elena walked down the long aisle toward the center of the chamber. The ceiling stretched high above her head, covered in lights that mimicked different suns from across the galaxy. The air smelled of ozone and metal. To Elena, it felt perfectly normal. At the front of the room sat Chairman Vorthak. He was enormous, nearly 10 feet tall with 6 arms and a head like a praying mantis. His dark green skin reflected the chamber's lights. When he spoke, his voice boomed through hidden speakers. "The emergency session of the Galactic Council will now begin," Vorthak announced. "We are here to discuss the urgent matter of planet Earth and its immediate evacuation." Elena took her place at a small podium in the center of the room. Around her, representatives from 200 different worlds watched from their safe enclosures. She had never felt so alone, yet so calm. Vorthak held up a thick data pad. "Dr. Vasquez, you represent the human species of planet Earth. This council has completed a full environmental study of your world. The results are disturbing." A large screen descended from the ceiling. Images of Earth appeared. Storms swirling over oceans, lightning striking tall buildings, snow covering mountains, and deserts stretching to the horizon. "Your planet," Vorthak continued, "has been classified as a Class X death world. The radiation levels alone would kill most civilized species within hours. The atmospheric composition is toxic. The weather patterns are violent and unpredictable. The geological activity threatens constant destruction." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Elena noticed how the other representatives nodded their heads or made similar gestures of approval. "Furthermore," Vorthak said, "your species shows clear signs of environmental damage. Short lifespans, frequent illness, and primitive technology. You have obviously suffered greatly on this hostile world." The screen now showed pictures of humans, children playing in parks under the bright sun, people swimming in oceans, families camping in mountains, workers building skyscrapers during thunderstorms. "The Council's decision is simple," Vorthak announced. "For your own safety and survival, all humans must be evacuated from Earth immediately. We have prepared several suitable colony worlds where you can live safely under proper environmental controls." "Wait," Elena said quietly. The entire chamber fell silent. Elena's voice had been soft, but somehow everyone heard it. "You want to remove us from our home?" Elena asked. Vorthak tilted his massive head. "Dr. Vasquez, surely you understand. We are trying to save your species. Earth is killing you slowly. We can offer you real worlds, safe worlds with controlled climates, filtered air, and stable conditions." Elena looked around the chamber. She saw beings who lived in bubbles, who breathed artificial air, who had never felt real wind or natural sunlight. They stared at her with what she realized was not disgust but fear. "May I ask a question?" Elena said. "Proceed," Vorthak replied. "How many of you have ever been outside without protection?" The chamber remained silent. "How many of you have felt rain on your skin, or walked on ground that wasn't perfectly smooth, or breathed air that wasn't filtered and processed?" Still no response. Elena nodded slowly. "I thought so. You look at me and see someone suffering, someone damaged by a terrible world. But I look at you and see something else entirely." "What do you see?" asked a crystalline being whose voice chimed like musical notes. "I see people who have forgotten what it means to be alive," Elena said simply. Angry sounds erupted from around the chamber. The jellyfish creature's tank bubbled furiously. The silver-skinned alien suits flashed warning lights. Several crystal beings chimed in discord. "Silence," Vorthak commanded. "Dr. Vasquez, you will show respect for this council. We are trying to help your primitive species." Elena smiled. It was not a happy smile, but it was not angry either. It was the smile of someone who understood something important that others had missed. Primitive, she repeated. Yes, I suppose we are primitive. We still live on the world that made us. We still breathe the air our planet gives us. We still drink water from rivers and oceans. We still grow food in dirt. She paused and looked directly at Vorthak. And we're still alive. Really, truly alive. Your point? Vorthak asked. I request permission to defend our world, Elena said. You call Earth a death world based on your standards. But your standards assume that safety equals survival, and survival equals success. I'd like to show you why you're wrong. The chamber erupted in sounds of disbelief. Laughter, chirping, bubbling, and electronic beeps filled the air. The idea that this simple human could challenge the Council's scientific assessment seemed ridiculous. Vorthak raised one of his 6 arms for silence. Dr. Vasquez, our environmental scientists have spent months studying your world. They have equipment and knowledge far beyond your understanding. What could you possibly tell us that we don't already know? Elena opened her leather bag and pulled out a small device. It looked ancient compared to the advanced technology surrounding her. I brought my grandfather's atmospheric scanner, she said. It's old, but it works. With your permission, I'd like to take some readings. This is absurd, muttered the silver-skinned alien. But Vorthak seemed curious. Proceed, Dr. Vasquez, take your readings. Elena turned on the device. It beeped softly and displayed numbers on a small screen. She walked around the chamber, pointing it at different areas. The readings changed as she moved. Interesting, she said finally. What have you discovered? Vorthak asked. Elena held up the scanner. According to this device, the air in this chamber would be considered toxic by Earth standards. The radiation levels are higher than normal. The temperature variations between different sections would be dangerous for most Earth species. Impossible, said the crystalline being. These are optimal conditions. Optimal for you, Elena agreed. But I'm breathing this air just fine. I'm functioning normally in these radiation levels. The temperature changes don't bother me at all. She put the scanner back in her bag. Members of the Council, Elena said, you want to save us from our terrible world. But I think you're missing something important. The question isn't whether Earth is dangerous. The question is, dangerous to whom? Vorthak leaned forward in his massive chair. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Explain, he said. Elena smiled again. This time it was the smile of a teacher about to give a very important lesson. I'd be happy to, she said, but it might take a while. The story of Earth is longer and more complex than you realize. And the story of humanity is something your scientists couldn't measure with their instruments. The chamber grew quiet. Helena could feel the attention of hundreds of alien minds focused on her. Very well, Vorthak said slowly. The Council will hear your defense of Earth. But understand, Dr. Vasquez, the evidence against your world is overwhelming. You will need to present something truly extraordinary to change our minds. Elena nodded. I understand. And I think you'll find that Earth and humanity are more extraordinary than any of you imagined. Elena stepped closer to the center of the chamber. The large screen still showed images of Earth, storms, lightning, and what the Council considered signs of a dying world. She looked at these pictures and saw something completely different. You call Earth's radiation levels deadly, Elena began. Let me tell you about that radiation. She pointed to an image of the sun rising over Earth's horizon. That's our star, Sul. Every morning, it rises and bathes our world in energy. Yes, that energy can be dangerous if you're not prepared for it, but it's also the reason life exists on Earth at all. The jellyfish creature in its water tank made a bubbling sound. Radiation is radiation, human. It damages cellular structure and causes mutations. Elena nodded. You're absolutely right. It does cause mutations. Do you know what we call beneficial mutations? Evolution. She walked over to the screen and gestured at the images. This radiation you fear powered the first life on Earth billions of years ago. It drives our weather systems. It makes plants grow, which feed animals, which feed other animals. Every bite of food a human eats exists because of that dangerous radiation. Chairman Vorthak shifted in his chair. But surely you must protect yourselves from this radiation? We do, Elena said. We've evolved skin that changes color to protect us. We've learned to cover ourselves when the radiation is strongest. We've built shelters and created clothing, but we don't hide from it completely because we need it. She turned to face the assembled aliens. Your scientists measured our ozone layer and called it unstable. But that layer exists because of the radiation interaction with our atmosphere. It protects us while letting through the energy we need. It's not unstable, it's dynamic. It changes and adapts to protect life below. The crystalline being chimed softly. But the oxygen levels in your atmosphere are toxic to most species. 21% oxygen, Elena agreed. Highly reactive, potentially explosive, and yes, toxic to many of you. But do you know what 21% oxygen allows? She paused for effect. Fire. Several aliens made sounds of alarm. The concept of fire seemed to disturb them greatly. Fire, Elena repeated. The ability to release stored energy quickly. Fire allowed early humans to cook food, which made nutrients more available and helped our brains grow larger. Fire gave us warmth in cold places, protection from dangerous animals, and light in darkness. Elena walked back to her podium and opened her bag again. She pulled out a small lighter, an ancient metal device her grandfather had carried. This simple tool changed everything for humanity. With fire, we could live in climates that would otherwise kill us. We could shape metal, create tools, and eventually build the technology that brought me here to speak with you. She flicked the lighter. A small flame appeared, dancing in the chamber's filtered air. Around the room, aliens recoiled in their protective environments. You see danger? Elena said, watching the flame. We see possibility. She closed the lighter and put it away. Now let me tell you about our atmosphere's pressure. Your scientists noted that it varies significantly across Earth's surface. Mountains have thin air while sea level has thick air. You probably considered this another sign of instability. Elena smiled. Humans live at sea level and also in mountains over 29,000 feet high. We adapt to the pressure changes. Our bodies learn to work with less oxygen or more oxygen. We become stronger. Impossible, said the silver-skinned alien. No species can survive such pressure variations. We don't just survive them, Elena replied. We seek them out. Humans climb mountains for fun. We dive deep into oceans where the pressure would crush most of your protective suits. We do these things not because we have to, but because we want to. She gestured to the screen, which now showed images of mountain climbers and deep-sea divers. Your species create perfect environments and stay in them. We create challenges and overcome them. The pressure variations you fear have made us stronger, more adaptable, and more resilient. Vorthak leaned forward. You speak of adaptation, but adaptation suggests your species is still primitive, still evolving. Exactly, Elena said with enthusiasm. We're still growing, still changing, still becoming more than we were. Evolution didn't stop for us when we gained intelligence. It accelerated. She pulled up data on her small device. In the last 10,000 years, humans have developed genetic resistance to diseases that once killed millions. We've adapted to live in deserts, Arctic regions, tropical jungles, and high altitudes. Our species becomes more diverse and capable with each generation. The chamber grew quieter. Elena noticed that fewer aliens were making dismissive sounds. Now let me address the weather patterns you find so disturbing. Elena continued. The screen showed hurricanes, tornadoes, and thunderstorms. Your report calls these violent and unpredictable weather patterns that threaten constant destruction. Oh, but you're missing something crucial. Elena walked closer to the screen. These storms move water from oceans to land, providing fresh water for plants and animals. They distribute nutrients across continents. They regulate temperature by moving hot air from warm areas to cold areas and cold air from cold areas to warm areas. She pointed to an image of a hurricane. This storm, which terrifies you, is actually Earth's way of preventing much worse problems. Without these storms, some areas would become too hot to support life, while others would become too cold. The storms balance everything. But they destroy human settlements, protested the jellyfish creature. Sometimes, Elena admitted, and we've learned to predict them, prepare for them, and rebuild after them. Each time we build better and stronger. The storms have taught us engineering principles that no laboratory could. She pulled out another device, a simple weather radio. This device receives signals from satellites that track every storm on Earth. We know where hurricanes will go days before they arrive. We know when tornadoes are likely to form. We've turned the unpredictable into the predictable. Elena turned the radio on. Static filled the air. Then a human voice began speaking about weather conditions thousands of light years away on Earth. Weather prediction has become so advanced that we can warn people days in advance of dangerous storms. What once killed thousands now might kill dozens because we learned to work with our planet's systems instead of against them. The weather report ended, and Elena turned off the radio. But there's something else about Earth's weather that your scientists missed, she said. What? Asked Vorthak. It's beautiful. The chamber fell silent. I've seen lightning that illuminates entire mountain ranges. I've watched rainbows that arc across half the sky. I've stood in snowfall that turns ordinary landscapes into winter wonderlands. I've felt warm rain on my face during summer thunderstorms. Elena's voice became softer, more personal. Your species have created perfect, controlled environments. But perfect can be boring. Controlled can be lifeless. Earth's weather surprises us, challenges us, and rewards us with beauty we could never create artificially. She looked around the chamber at all the protective barriers, filtered air systems, and artificial environments. Tell me, she said, when was the last time any of you were surprised by your weather? When did you last step outside and feel something unexpected? When did you last see your sky do something that took your breath away? No one answered. Elena nodded. I thought so. You've gained perfect safety, but you've lost wonder. You've eliminated danger, but you've also eliminated the joy that comes from experiencing something wild and free and beyond your control. She paused and looked directly at Chairman Vorthak. Earth's weather isn't trying to kill us, it's trying to stay alive. And in learning to live with it, we've stayed alive too, in ways I'm not sure any of you remember. The chamber remained quiet. Elena could see that some of the aliens were beginning to think about her words in new ways. But the weather is just the beginning, Elena said. If you really want to understand why Earth isn't a death world, we need to talk about the ground beneath our feet. We need to talk about why a planet that moves and shakes and changes has created the most stable environment for life that any of us have ever seen. Vorthak's mandibles clicked together, a sign of deep thought among his species. Continue, Dr. Vasquez, he said quietly. We are listening. Elena moved to a new section of the large screen. Images of volcanoes, earthquakes, and mountain ranges appeared. The assembled aliens stirred uneasily in their protective environments. Your geological report was particularly harsh, Elena said, reading from a data pad. Quote, catastrophic seismic activity threatens all surface life. Volcanic eruptions poison the atmosphere with toxic gases. Tectonic movement makes long-term settlement impossible. End quote. She set down the pad and looked at the images of Earth's geological activity. I'd like to tell you about the most dangerous place I've ever lived. The chamber grew quiet with attention. When I was 12 years old, my family moved to a small town in the shadow of Mount Vesuvius in Italy. This volcano has erupted many times throughout history. It buried entire cities. Your scientists would call it a death trap. Elena smiled at the memory. We lived there for 8 years. Every morning I walked to school with that volcano rising above me. Every evening I played with friends in soil that was created by ancient eruptions. Every night I slept peacefully knowing that the mountain might wake up and change everything. That sounds terrifying, said the crystalline being. It was wonderful, Elena replied. The soil around Vesuvius is the richest, most fertile land in Italy. Plants grow larger and stronger there than almost anywhere else in the world. The people who live near the volcano eat better, live longer, and have healthier children than people in safer areas. She gestured to the screen. This volcano that your report calls a threat to life has actually created more life than it has ever destroyed. The minerals it brings up from deep in the earth feed plants that feed animals that feed people. The heat it produces warms underground water that people use for energy. Elena pulled out her scanner again and took readings around the chamber. Your optimal geological conditions here are perfectly stable. No movement, no changes, no surprises. But did you know that perfectly stable geology is actually a sign of a dying planet? Murmurs of confusion rippled through the chamber. Earth's geological activity proves that our planet is alive, Elena continued. Deep inside Earth, molten rock moves and flows. This movement does several things that your scientists somehow missed. She walked over to the screen and pointed to images of the Earth's cross-section. First, it creates our magnetic field. That field protects us from cosmic radiation that would sterilize our planet. Without geological activity, we'd have no protection from space. The jellyfish creature bubbled thoughtfully. But the movement causes earthquakes. Yes, Elena agreed. And those earthquakes prevent much worse disasters. When underground pressure builds up gradually, it releases gradually. If our planet were perfectly stable, pressure would build until everything exploded at once. She showed images of earthquake damage and recovery. Humans have learned to build structures that move with earthquakes instead of fighting them. In Japan, we build skyscrapers that sway like trees in the wind. They dance with the Earth's movement instead of breaking against it. Elena paused and looked around the chamber. But there's something else about geological activity that makes Earth special. It creates new land. She switched to images of volcanic islands forming in the ocean. Every day, Earth makes new places for life to exist. Volcanoes create islands where none existed before. Tectonic movement pushes up new mountain ranges. Erosion carves new valleys and canyons. Our planet constantly recreates itself. But this destroys existing habitats, protested the silver-skinned alien, and creates new ones, Elena countered. When Mount St. Helens erupted in 1980, it destroyed a large forest. Your scientists would call this an ecological disaster. But within 10 years, new life was growing in the ash. Within 30 years, the area had more biological diversity than before the eruption. She showed before and after images of the volcanic landscape. The eruption didn't just destroy, it renewed. It brought up minerals that had been buried for thousands of years. It created new soil conditions that allowed different plants to grow. It opened up space for new ecosystems to develop. Elena walked back to her podium. Earth's geological activity is like a giant recycling system. Old mountains get worn down and their minerals feed new life. New mountains rise up and create new climate zones. Ocean floors spread apart and create new underwater habitats. She pulled out a small rock from her bag. This is a piece of basalt from the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the place where new ocean floor is created. It's only a few years old, but it's already covered with living organisms. Earth doesn't just support life. It constantly creates new opportunities for life. Vorthak leaned forward. But surely the instability makes long-term planning impossible. Elena laughed. Chairman Vorthak, humans have been living with geological instability for our entire existence. We've built cities that last for thousands of years despite earthquakes. We've created civilizations that survive volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, and continental drift. She gestured to the images on the screen. Rome has been continuously inhabited for over 2,000 years, despite being built on volcanically active land. Tokyo is one of the largest cities in human history, despite being in one of the most earthquake-prone regions on Earth. We don't just survive geological activity, we thrive because of it. How is that possible? Asked the crystalline being. Because geological activity has taught us to be flexible, Elena explained. We learned to build structures that can be repaired quickly. We developed technologies that work even when the ground moves. We created social systems that help communities recover from disasters. She pulled out another device, a simple seismometer. This measures earthquake activity. Every human city in a geologically active area has networks of these devices. We know when the Earth is going to move before it moves. We've learned to read our planet's signals. The device showed small, steady readings. Even here, thousands of light years from Earth, this device detects tiny vibrations in this space station. Everything moves, Chairman Vorthak. The difference is that we've learned to move with... Elena put the seismometer away and looked around the chamber. But geological activity has given us something else that your stable worlds cannot provide. What? Several aliens asked simultaneously. Diversity. Elena activated a new set of images on the screen, landscapes from around Earth. Mountains create different climate zones at different altitudes. Valleys have different conditions than hillsides. Volcanic soils support different plants than sedimentary soils. Earthquake zones often become river valleys that support different ecosystems than stable plains. The images showed incredible variety: snow-capped peaks, tropical valleys, desert canyons, and fertile plains. This geological diversity has created biological diversity. Earth has more different types of life than any other planet we've discovered. Because Earth has more different types of places for life to exist. Elena paused and looked directly at each group of aliens. Your stable worlds support the same conditions everywhere, perfect for the species that evolved there but limited in what new life can develop. Earth's constant change has forced life to become more creative, more adaptable, more diverse. She switched to images of human cities built in various geological settings. We have cities built on active fault lines, cities built around active volcanoes, cities built on shifting river deltas, and cities built on moving glacial plains. Each type of geological challenge has taught us different skills and technologies. This seems incredibly dangerous, said the jellyfish creature. It is, Elena agreed, and that danger has made us stronger. Every geological challenge we've faced has forced us to become better engineers, better planners, better problem solvers. She pulled out an old photograph from her bag. This is my great-grandmother's house in San Francisco. It was built in 1905. 1 year before the Great Earthquake of 1906, the earthquake destroyed most of the city. Elena held up the photo. My great-grandmother rebuilt her house, using new techniques learned from the earthquake. That house survived the next earthquake in 1989. Her granddaughter, my grandmother, used lessons from both earthquakes to build an even better house. That's where I grew up. She put the photo away. 4 generations of my family have lived with earthquakes. Each generation learned from the previous one and built something stronger. The earthquakes didn't defeat us, they educated us. Elena walked closer to Chairman Vorthak. You see geological activity as a threat to civilization. We see it as civilization's greatest teacher. Every challenge our planet has given us has made us more capable of meeting the next challenge. She gestured around the chamber. How many of your species could survive if their perfect environments were disrupted? How many could adapt to new conditions? How many could rebuild if their cities were destroyed? The chamber grew very quiet. Because humans can do all of those things. We've done them thousands of times throughout our history. Earth's geological activity hasn't made us weak, it's made us nearly indestructible. Elena returned to her podium. But we haven't even talked about the most important thing yet. What could be more important than geological stability? Asked Vorthak. Elena smiled. The fact that all of this geological activity, all of this atmospheric chaos, all of this dangerous radiation has created something that none of your perfect worlds have achieved. And what is that? Balance. Elena reached into her bag and pulled out her grandfather's atmospheric scanner again. The device looked ancient compared to the advanced technology surrounding her, but it had served her family well for decades. I'd like to demonstrate something, she said, holding up the scanner. With your permission, I'll take some detailed readings of the environmental conditions in this chamber. Chairman Vorthak gestured with one of his 6 arms. Proceed. Elena turned on the device and began walking around the chamber. The scanner beeped softly as it analyzed the air, radiation levels, pressure, and temperature. As she moved from section to section, the readings changed dramatically. Fascinating, she murmured, studying the display. She approached the area where the ethereals sat in their environmental suits. The scanner's readings spiked into dangerous ranges. She moved to the crystalline being's temperature-controlled section. Again, the readings showed levels that would be harmful to most life forms. Dr. Vasquez called the jellyfish creature from its water tank. What are you discovering? Elena stopped and looked at the scanner's display. Then she looked up at the assembled aliens with an expression of growing understanding. I'm discovering, she said slowly, that every environmental condition in this chamber would be considered dangerous by Earth standards. Confused sounds erupted from around the room. Impossible, said the silver-skinned ethereal. These are optimal conditions for civilized life. Elena held up the scanner. According to this device, the atmospheric pressure in the ethereal section would cause immediate breathing problems for most Earth species. The temperature in the crystalline section would cause cellular damage. The chemical composition of the liquid in the aquatic section would be toxic to terrestrial life. She walked back to the center of the chamber. But here's what's interesting. I'm perfectly comfortable in all of these conditions. Elena removed her jacket and set it aside. Then she walked over to the ethereal section and stood directly in front of their environmental barriers. The atmospheric pressure here is 30% higher than Earth normal, she announced. Reading from her scanner, most Earth life would experience immediate discomfort and eventual organ damage. She took several deep breaths and smiled. I feel fine. Elena moved to the crystalline beings area. The temperature here was significantly lower, and frost was forming on the chamber walls. 15 degrees below Earth freezing, she read. Humans should experience hypothermia within minutes. She stood there for several minutes talking normally, showing no signs of distress. Still fine. Finally, she approached the aquatic section. The humidity and chemical composition of the air here was drastically different from Earth normal. Chemical levels that would be toxic to most Earth life, she announced. Humidity levels that should cause respiratory distress. Elena breathed normally and showed no ill effects. Perfect. She returned to the center of the chamber. Scanner in hand. Do you understand what this means? She asked the assembled aliens. Vorthak's mandibles clicked uncertainly. Explain. Elena held up the scanner again. Every species in this chamber requires artificial environmental controls to survive in conditions that differ from their homeworld. You need protective suits, filtered air, controlled temperatures, and chemical barriers to exist outside your optimal zones. She gestured around the room. But humans, supposedly primitive, supposedly damaged by our terrible death world, can function normally in any of these environments. We don't need protection from your optimal conditions. We don't need artificial support to survive in your safe zones. The chamber began to buzz with alarmed conversations in dozens of alien languages. That's not possible, protested the crystalline being. No single species can survive in multiple optimal zones. Earth species can, Elena replied calmly. Because Earth doesn't have a single optimal zone. Our planet has thousands of different environments, and life there has learned to be flexible. She pulled out her weather radio again and tuned it to pick up signals from the chamber's communication systems. Let me show you something else. This simple device can receive and process any of the communication frequencies used by the species in this room. One device, multiple incompatible systems. The radio crackled and began playing fragments of alien communications in various languages and formats. Earth. Technology is built to be adaptable because Earth conditions are adaptable. We don't build tools for perfect conditions. We build tools that work under any conditions. Elena turned off the radio and looked directly at Vorthak. Your scientists studied Earth and concluded we were suffering. They saw our adaptation to challenging conditions as evidence of damage, but they made a critical error in their analysis. What error? Vorthak asked quietly. They assumed that needing protection was normal and that not needing protection was primitive. They never considered that not needing protection might actually be advanced. Elena walked over to the large screen and gestured to images of human cities. Look at these pictures again. See humans working in conditions that would kill most of the species in this room. See children playing in radiation levels that your species fear. See families living comfortably in atmospheric conditions that you consider toxic. The images now looked different to the assembled aliens. Instead of seeing primitive suffering and harsh conditions, they were beginning to see something else entirely. We're not wearing environmental suits because we don't need them, Elena continued. We're not using artificial life support because our biology is sophisticated enough to handle natural variations. We're not hiding in controlled environments because we've evolved to thrive in uncontrolled ones. She turned back to face the chamber. Earth didn't damage us. Earth made us stronger than any of you imagined possible. The jellyfish creature's tank bubbled nervously. But your short lifespans, your frequent illnesses, compared to what? Elena asked. Your species live longer because you've eliminated every challenge that might threaten you. You've also eliminated every challenge that might make you stronger. She pulled out a medical scanner from her bag. Human immune systems fight off thousands of different diseases. Our bodies repair damage from radiation, pressure changes, and chemical exposure. Our brains process constant environmental changes and adapt to new conditions automatically. Elena ran the medical scanner over herself and displayed the results. My cellular repair systems are currently healing minor radiation damage from this chamber's environment. My respiratory system has adjusted to the different atmospheric pressure. My circulatory system has adapted to the temperature variations. She showed the scanner to the nearest aliens. I'm not just surviving in your optimal conditions, I'm actively adapting to them in real time. My body is treating this environment as a minor variation of normal Earth conditions. Elena put the scanner away and pulled out one final device, a simple compass. This points to magnetic north on any planet with a magnetic field. It works the same way no matter where I am in the galaxy because it uses fundamental physical principles rather than controlled artificial systems. She held up the compass and watched it orient itself to the station's artificial magnetic field. Earth taught us to work with natural forces instead of fighting them. We learned to use what exists rather than creating what we wish existed. That's made us more adaptable than species that rely on artificial support systems. Elena looked around the chamber at all the protective barriers and life support systems. What happens to your species if their environmental controls fail? What happens if their perfect conditions are disrupted? What happens if they encounter an environment they haven't prepared for? She let the questions hang in the air, because humans encounter new environments all the time. We explore, we travel, we adapt. We survive in places we've never seen before using skills we learned on a world you call impossible to live on. Elena walked back to her podium and set down her devices. Your scientists concluded that Earth is a death world because they compared it to your controlled environments, but they never asked the most important question. What question? Forthak asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Elena smiled. They never asked whether your controlled environments might actually be death worlds, safe spaces that slowly eliminate the variabilities that keep a species truly alive. The chamber fell completely silent. Elena could see aliens looking at their protective barriers and life support systems with new uncertainty. Because that's what I see when I look around this room, Elena said quietly. I see species that have become so dependent on artificial safety that they've forgotten how to live in the real universe. She paused and looked directly at each group of aliens. You call Earth a death world because it would kill you, but I call your worlds death worlds because they're slowly killing the thing that makes life worth living. The ability to grow, adapt, and become more than you were yesterday. Elena picked up her simple leather bag. Earth isn't trying to kill us. Earth is trying to make us immortal. Elena reached into her bag one final time and pulled out a data crystal. The small device gleamed under the chamber's artificial lights. She held it up for everyone to see. Before I came here, she said, I asked Earth's biological survey teams to compile some information for me. Information that your scientists somehow missed during their evaluation of our world. She inserted the crystal into the chamber's display system. New images began to appear on the large screen. Images that made several aliens gasp in their protective environments. These are biodiversity counts from various worlds, Elena announced. The first image showed a crystalline world, beautiful, geometric, perfectly controlled. Below it, numbers appeared. The Zephyrian homeworld supports approximately 400 different species of life, Elena read, all perfectly adapted to controlled crystalline environments, all highly specialized, all completely dependent on stable conditions. The crystalline beings chimed. Nervously, the next image showed an aquatic world of stunning beauty, vast oceans under perfect skies, the depths dwellers. Homeworld supports approximately 1,000 species, Elena continued, all aquatic, all adapted to perfect chemical balance, all requiring precisely controlled environments. The jellyfish creature's tank bubbled anxiously. More images followed. The ethereal homeworld with its filtered atmosphere, other council worlds with their managed environments. Each displayed their species counts, hundreds, sometimes thousands of different life forms. Very impressive numbers, Elena said. Perfect world supporting perfectly adapted life. Then the final image appeared on the screen. It was Earth. The number that appeared below, it made the entire chamber fall silent. 8.7 million known species, Elena read quietly, with an estimated total of over 1 trillion different life forms when microorganisms are included. The silence stretched for long minutes. That's impossible, whispered the silver-skinned ethereal. Elena smiled sadly. Your perfect worlds, with their controlled conditions and managed environments, support thousands of species each. Earth, this terrible death world you want to evacuate, supports millions, she gestured to the screen. But it's not just the numbers. It's the diversity. Earth has life forms that exist in boiling water, and life forms that exist in frozen ice. We have creatures that live in crushing deep ocean pressure, and creatures that live in the thin air of high mountains. We have organisms that eat sunlight and organisms that eat rocks. Elena advanced to the next slide, showing the incredible variety of Earth life. We have animals that fly, swim, burrow, climb, and run. We have plants that grow in deserts, rainforests, swamps, and on bare stone. We have microscopic life in every environment on the planet. including places you would consider absolutely impossible for life to exist. The images showed life in volcanic vents, in Arctic ice, in radioactive zones, and in the deepest ocean trenches. This diversity exists because Earth doesn't provide perfect conditions, Elena explained. It provides challenging conditions that force life to become creative, adaptable, and resilient. She turned to face the assembled aliens. But there's something else in this data that your scientists missed. Something that should terrify you. Elena advanced to a new slide showing comparative ecosystem stability data. Your perfect worlds are dying. Shock sounds erupted from around the chamber. The ethereal homeworld has lost 12% of its species in the last 1,000 years. Elena read from the data. The crystalline worlds have become so specialized that any environmental change causes mass extinctions. The managed aquatic worlds are showing signs of ecological collapse as their controlled systems become too rigid to adapt to change. Elena looked around the chamber at the protective barriers and artificial environments. Perfect. Safety creates perfect fragility. When you eliminate all challenges, you also eliminate the ability to meet new challenges. Your species have become so specialized, so dependent on specific conditions, that you're actually more vulnerable than primitive life forms. She gestured to the Earth data. Earth's ecosystems have survived asteroid impacts, ice ages, volcanic super-eruptions, and massive climate changes. We've been through extinction events that wiped out most life on the planet, and life came back stronger and more diverse than before. Elena paused and looked directly at Chairman Vorthak. How many extinction events would it take to destroy your perfect worlds? How much change could your specialized ecosystem survive? Vorthak's mandibles clicked nervously. He had no answer. Elena advanced to her final slide. It showed a simple comparison chart. Environmental adaptability ranges, she announced. How much change different species can survive before their populations collapse. The chart showed narrow bars for most council species, small ranges of temperature, pressure, radiation, and chemical conditions that they could tolerate. At the bottom of the chart was a bar for humans. It stretched across nearly the entire range. Humans can survive in conditions that would instantly kill most of the species in this chamber, Elena said quietly. We can adapt to changes that would destroy entire civilizations. We can thrive in environments that your species consider absolutely impossible. She turned off the display and faced the chamber. You wanted to evacuate us from Earth to save us, but you never asked what would happen to Earth without us. Elena pulled out one more image, a projection of Earth's ecosystem without human intervention, without humans actively managing and protecting Earth's biodiversity. The planet would lose approximately 30% of its species within a century. We're not just survivors of Earth's challenges. We're partners in Earth's success. She put the image away and stood quietly for a moment. Earth made us strong so we could make Earth stronger. We're not victims of a death world. We're gardeners of the most successful biosphere in known galactic history. Elena looked around the chamber at all the aliens in their protective enclosures. You fear Earth because she demands growth. She demands adaptation. She demands that life become more than it was. Your perfect worlds ask nothing of you, so you become nothing more than you were. She picked up her simple leather bag and slung it over her shoulder. Earth doesn't offer safety. She offers opportunity. The opportunity to become stronger, smarter, more resilient, more alive. Every challenge she presents is an invitation to grow. Elena walked closer to Chairman Vorthak. You call Earth unlivable because you've forgotten what it means to truly live. You've created perfect, sterile environments that breed perfect, sterile civilizations. Her voice became softer, but somehow carried to every corner of the chamber. We didn't survive Earth despite her challenges. We survived because of them. We didn't overcome our world. We partnered with her. We didn't escape death. We learned to dance with it. Elena paused and looked around the chamber one final time. Earth isn't a death world. She's the most alive world any of us have ever seen. She doesn't make life safe. She makes life worth living. She gestured to all the protective barriers and artificial environments. You fear Earth because she would demand that you grow, that you adapt, that you become more than you are. You're comfortable in your cages of perfect safety. Elena's final words rang out clearly in the silent chamber. We don't call Earth home despite her harshness. We call her home because she gave us the strength to meet any challenge the universe could offer. She made us free. Elena turned and began walking toward the chamber's exit. Behind her, hundreds of representatives sat in stunned silence. Chairman Vorthak's voice, when it finally came, was barely audible. Motion to classify Earth as a death world requiring evacuation. He paused, his mandibles clicking uncertainly. Withdrawn. Elena stopped at the chamber doors and looked back. "Thank you for listening," she said simply. Then she walked out into the corridor, breathing the station's artificial air with casual ease. Through the chamber's transparent walls, the galaxy's most advanced species watched her leave, each one confronting an uncomfortable truth. They had just met something they thought no longer existed in their sterile galaxy, a truly wild, truly free, truly alive representative of a truly living world. Elena stepped onto the station's observation deck and looked out at the stars. Somewhere among them was a small blue planet where storms raged, mountains moved, and radiation bathed a world in the energy of life itself. She smiled and headed for the docking bay where her ship waited to take her home. Behind her, in the council chamber, the galaxy's representatives sat in their protective environments, finally understanding what they had lost in their pursuit of perfect safety. They had gained security, but they had forgotten how to live.